Today's show is brought to you by locally owned and operated Highland Rim Speedway. Highland Rim Speedway is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year with great short-track, door-to-door stock car racing in a safe, family-friendly atmosphere. Visit their website at highlandrim.com. From the family grocery hauler to fire-breathing racing engines, the one name you need to know is USA Motor and Machine, located at 51 Cleveland Avenue in Nashville, Tennessee. Give them a call at 615-726-3725 or visit them online at www.usamotorandmachine.com. Jeff Meeks and Chris Austin invite you to watch your favorite sports event at the Batter's Box at 43 Hermitage Avenue in Nashville, Tennessee. The Batter's Box offers shuttle service to all Titans home games. It's a great place for friends to gather for the game and after the game. So check out the Batter's Box Bar and Grill, and thanks again for sponsoring the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome in to another edition of Pit Pass. I'm Joe Williams, along with my idol, Larry Woody, longtime sports writer for the Tennessean, and of course, he's seen a little bit of everything. And Larry, this week, we saw what has been a pretty vanilla NASCAR season turn quickly into Rockyroad.
I'm still not sure where to begin, Joe, after what we saw Sunday at Phoenix. Joe, I think it was the most eventful single race impact-wise for NASCAR since maybe the brawl of '79 at Daytona when Cale Yarborough and the Allison brothers went at it. And we'll get into the details about whether it's good for the sport, bad for the sport, whatever later on. But what a weekend, and there are so many storylines. You, as I say, when you're planning your budget, you don't know which to lead with. I guess a good starting point would be, I think we probably saw the championship decided Sunday at Phoenix because Jimmy Johnson crashed. He went from a 7-point lead to a 20-point deficit to Brad Keselowski, and going into the finale this week at Homestead, Florida, if Keselowski can finish 15th or better, he's the champion, even if Jimmy wins the race, leads the most laps and so forth. 15th or better wins the championship for Keselowski. All he's got to do is keep the shiny side up. And I was looking, Joe, he hadn't finished, his worst finish in the chase so far is 11th. So all Brad's got to do, like I say, just keep the rubber down and the shiny side up, and he's probably the champion.
Is this where I mentioned that's kind of what I said a couple, 3 weeks ago?
Remember I said last week, Jimmy's got it locked up. There's no, he's too good. There's no way he'll beat himself. But a blown tire. You know,
yeah, it's not anything he did.
Jimmy didn't beat himself. The football blew up in his hand, yeah, with a wide open receiver. So that's what makes this sport so wacky. So you can't predict it. I mean, who knows? But Joe, this team had been so bulletproof over the years. They'd won 5 championships. Jimmy Johnson, Chad Knaus, the Hendricks people, just almost bulletproof. Like we said, when they get down, they never get out. It's almost like Dracula rising from the crypt. You know, you can't drive a stake through it. His Hardy comes back the next week, he's stalk again. But Sunday at Phoenix, Dracula didn't come back. The tire blew, he hits the wall, the car is demolished, and even Jimmy Johnson and Chad Knaus can't race with their car crumpled up against the wall. So
somebody closed the coffin pretty well on this.
I believe it slammed and closed and nailed shut. But again, you know, we can't say for sure because Jimmy's 20 points down, and as you saw at Phoenix, anything can happen. You know, what if the same thing happened to Keselowski
this week
at Homestead this week? It could, you know, the fortunes could be reversed. So, but again, if something really screwy doesn't happen for the second straight week, Brad Keselowski at age 28 is the new NASCAR champ.
Now, he got there in one of the strangest of ways, as Larry said. Jimmy Johnson blowing a tire. Brad, I think, finished 6th. Guess we ought to mention Happy Harvick finally got RCR Racing, Richard Childress Racing, back in the winner's circle. But all that is secondary, completely secondary to the reason it is truly a two-man race, and that is because the third-place man in the points chase crashed out.
And wasn't too happy.
And wasn't too happy about it. And a former champion helped make this a two-car race. And Larry, I'm kind of a conspiracy theorist. We'll talk about this a little bit later. But I want you to see what happened Sunday in Phoenix. Now, Jeff Gordon in the 24 car and Clint Bowyer in the other car. They kind of beat on each other a little bit over the past couple of weeks and months. And Jeff said he'd had enough. Let's see the tape. You'll see just how much of enough is enough.
Finally boiled over.
Yeah.
On the black flag.
Now here we come. Keep your eye out.
He's
look. That's Logano. You see the tail end of this crash. That's the 24 taking the 15 out. Literally.
And Jeff Gordon driving the number 24 deliberately, as he said later, crashed in. Bowyer driving the 15 because of some earlier incidents, which we don't see on the replays here. There have been, as you said, Joe Beekman banging all through this race and all through some previous races. This thing had been escalating for several races. Finally boiled over at Phoenix, but Jeff admitted, Bowyer ran into him, so he took him out later.
Here's Jeff getting his helmet off. Not only was Clint a bit upset, but I think you'll find the folks who work on that car were equally upset as the brawl broke out.
The pit crewmen, they always come to the defense of the drivers. I was a little disappointed in Jeff Gordon, Joe. The first rule in a brawl, never take your helmet off.
Well, I don't think he knew a brawl was coming. This came in from behind him.
If you anticipate a brawl, for goodness sake, keep your helmet on.
The other thing I noticed, those NASCAR officials are just kind of standing at the edge saying, back up everybody, back up everybody.
They're kind of like hockey officials.
They weren't going to get in the middle of this. There's one right there, but I mean, outside of that, no, we're going to take our time getting into the middle of it.
And the funniest thing, which we're watching now, that's Clint Bowyer.
Got out of his
leaves from his car, furious, hurdles the pit road wall, goes tearing through the garage area, over to Jeff Gordon's hauler. There he goes now.
Who says they're not athletes? Look at that guy run.
Look at him go. Look at him go. Jumps up on his hauler where he has to be restrained here in a minute. Look at him go.
Nobody can keep looking. Passes a deputy.
He's got to be in shape to be a NASCAR cameraman chasing through there. He's headed to Jeff Gordon's. We're going to discuss dinner plans tonight.
I'm sure they're
gets up to a hauler, and now he's restrained. Now, the funniest thing about this, Joe, which we don't have on the replay here, is on the television, on the telecast, after this scene here, they break and they play a commercial with Clint Bowyer's 5-hour energy drink.
Now, here's another look at what's going to happen. This is Gordon right there who just turned left. And the process called Joey Logano, and notice that's the two-car of Brad Keselowski. Larry, what if Keselowski had been caught up in this?
He would have been even less happy, or wasn't very happy anyway, which I didn't really understand. Keselowski's, I thought he went a little overboard with the criticism. Somebody else's problem, he almost got caught up in it, but racing is racing, and Keselowski, he's no angel out there. He's had some encounters with a rough kind over the years, so I thought he went a little overboard with the post-race criticism.
Ugly situation.
But again, that says it all there. Jeff Gordon, Clint ran into Jeff earlier, took Jeff out into the wall.
It certainly didn't.
Added to what's been a miserable chase and a miserable overall season for Jeff Gordon. Again, there's a history between the two. Jeff had enough. Lost his temper, and he decided, well, if you hit me, I'll hit you. Took him out. Now, the interesting thing, Bowyer would have mathematically still been in contention for the championship.
Exactly.
But realistically, he wasn't.
Well,
he wasn't.
I understand. But let me ask you. Let me ask you now. Conspiracy theorist here. Gordon knows that his partner Johnson's out. Keselowski's making up, and if he can get two birds with one stone, he got Bowyer. If he can get Keselowski, you think that was in his mind at all?
No, I don't, Joe, because as I say, Bowyer had crashed into Gordon earlier, and I think this bomb had been ticking for several weeks. Going back. If there hadn't been a history between the two, prior history, I think maybe it's, you might lend some credence to that. But given their past history and the incident earlier in the race when Bowyer did knock Jeffy into the wall, no, I think it was just a matter of the clock was ticking and the fuse probably finally burned down and he blew up.
One of the things that Gordon caught grief on early in his career especially was, gee, you're not passionate enough, you're Wonder Boy.
Pretty boy from California. He's not tough enough to drive stock cars.
Exactly, he's not tough enough. Right. Well, the couple of times that he's reacted, if you remember his fight, I guess, with Jeff Burton in Texas a couple of years ago, everybody's kind of surprised.
And Joe, if you think back to, I remember seeing Jeff Gordon go toe-to-toe with Dale Earnhardt one afternoon at Daytona. So Jeff is tough. I mean, he's got the Hollywood looks, the Tom Cruise kind of looks, the Hollywood persona, that kind of thing. The runway model wife, all this. But Jeff is a tough little driver. Like I say, he looks like a choir boy and drives like a moonshine runner. So when you push Jeff Gordon's buttons enough, as Clint Bowyer found out last Sunday, Jeff has got a temper in there, and I like it. We'll talk more about it, good for the sport, bad for the sport, but frankly, I like what I saw out of Jeff Gordon the other day. And I think the sport needs more of it.
Well, you know, who was it? Harvick said the same thing. I like fights.
I almost forgotten Kevin Harvick. He won the race.
I was going to say, he won the race.
By the way, Kevin Harvick won the race. That's what I said, Joe. So many stories going on. Kevin Harvick wins the race, breaks a 44 race losing streak. At the week that the story broke about he's probably going to be leaving Richard Childress Racing, Richard Childress is furious because he saw it on television that his top driver is leaving him. It's kind of like seeing on television that your girlfriend's breaking up with you and going to be moving out tomorrow morning.
With your best friend.
With your best friend. Richard's not happy, but again, all of this drama is buried 2 layers beneath all the other drama.
And the thing about the Harvick thing, he's not leaving until 14. They got a whole year they got to work together.
Your girlfriend's moving out and moving in with your best friend, but she's going to stay with you for 1 more year.
Yeah, for 1 more year just to see what happens.
That'll be a lot of some interesting team meetings over the next year.
Can you imagine? Especially going to Tony Stewart, who has a habit of coming up and grabbing Harvick's wife's behind.
Well, we won't go into that, but there is maybe that was the seal of the deal.
Okay, a couple other things came out of this. NASCAR has issued some fines. Thank you for pulling us out of that one.
Gordon we were just talking about.
Yeah, Jeff Gordon we were talking about. Gordon winds up with a $100,000 fine, $100,000. He loses 25 points in the chase, which at this point doesn't matter.
What's he going to finish 8th or 9th in the standings? So what?
And $100,000 to Jeff Gordon is nothing.
He's got that much change under the sofa in his living room.
Probably.
I looked it up, Joe. He's made over $100 million in his career. That's official winnings. He's probably made that much more on endorsements. What's $100,000? That's like you being charged, 50 cents for a traffic violation. It's chump change.
And he's been placed on probation through December 31st.
But in NASCAR, probation doesn't mean anything. Tony Stewart was on probation when he got involved in a brawl, and they simply extended his probation. I think it's up to the year 2068 or something like that.
Probably. Here's the catch, though, Larry. A lot of folks are asking the question. Last year before, Kyle Busch crashed Ron Hornaday hard at Texas.
On purpose.
As Hornaday, on purpose, obviously under caution, if I remember right, but obviously on purpose, as Hornaday was fighting for a truck championship and knocked him out of it. That was the end of it. And NASCAR then sat Kyle Busch for 2 races that weekend. Did not allow him to
participate. Including a cup race. Even though the incident occurred in a truck race, Kyle was set out.
So the question some people are asking, why then is Jeff Gordon racing in the last race?
Clear double standard. They're not going to set a superstar like Jeff Gordon out. Plus, Joe, in defense of NASCAR, Kyle Busch did have a long history of this. This was the latest. This was sort of the explanation mark on the sentence for Kyle. That was not just the truck race incident that got Kyle set down. This was the final straw for NASCAR.
And that's where I was headed. That's the big difference, Larry. Jeff Gordon does not have a history of doing this. Jeff Gordon's history is different. Now, give Kyle Busch credit. He's been pretty decent this year.
I think he might have finally learned his lesson. We'll see. I'm not completely convinced. We still remember the night he almost hit you with the guitar at Nashville Super Speedway when he smashed him. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt. So far, so good.
Some other penalties were handed out. The crew chiefs got some. I think Bowyer got probation. These kind of things. Basically, here's what I love about NASCAR probation. They are on probation through December 31st.
They aren't racing. 1
race left between now and December 31st.
If they stay out of trouble during the off season, then they're okay
at
that time.
What happens what are they going to do? If they go in and do something crazy, they're going to suspend them through December 31st?
Joe, NASCAR's sitting in Daytona laughing right now. This is the greatest thing that's happened to this sport since, as I said, the brawl of '79.
Craziest part about this, too. Here's the other one I loved. Tell you what, let's take a break first. We're going to take a break first, then we're going to come back.
Hold that thought.
Hold that thought. You want to talk about double standards? We're going to tell you about double standards. And I got to call them on this one because this one just really got to me. But we'll talk about that. If you're a Brad Keselowski fan, you want to hang around for the next segment of Pit Pass.
From the family grocery hauler to fire-breathing racing engines, the one name you need to know is USA Motor and Machine, located at 51 Cleveland Avenue in Nashville, Tennessee. Give them a call at 615-726-3725 or visit them online at www.usamotorandmachine.com.
Microcasting for your city, Talkapolis.
Welcome back, everybody, to Pit Pass. I'm Joe Williams, along with Larry Woody. And Larry, we've kind of covered most of the stuff that happened at Phoenix this past weekend, except for one of the most expensive cell phone text calls in the history of man. Now, back in February in Daytona, when we had the big red flag, Brad Keselowski is sitting in his car and he's texting. And he picked up, 1,500 new followers on his Twitter account because he's texting. Sunday, during the red flag, he's texting. Social media, this is great. NASCAR loves it. Except,
If you say anything bad about NASCAR.
a little bit later, this text, 140 characters, 25 grand. What is that? How much is that a character? I should have done the math on that.
You know, I was talking to Junior Johnson once about Twittering.
Junior?
No, of course.
Oh,
Isn't that amazing? Who would have thought years ago we're talking about one of the problems with NASCAR is drivers twittering in their cars during a race. No, we've got to put a stop to this twittering. But it is amazing, and to these guys' credits, they get a ton of followers on this.
Yeah.
This is the new social media, and the younger generation. They Twitter and tweet.
Got a suggestion for Brad. Years ago, a guy by the name of Rusty Wallace. A lot of folks won't remember Rusty as a driver, I know.
Yeah.
But he was driving the 2 car with the same sponsor. And I think his fine was $5 grand for something he had done. Old buddy Tom Roberts, he was a PR guy at the time, and they paid their fine in cash in Daytona by rolling up, you remember this?
Pennies.
An armored truck with $5,000 worth of pennies.
I think that was TR's idea.
I would blame it on him. Here's what I'm thinking. Brad, go old school. Go back into history. Take 2 armored cars and pay it off in pennies.
Well, Joe, my take, to get serious just a moment.
Yeah.
But I like that idea, incidentally. But I'm a little concerned about NASCAR poking its nose in there. I mean, on one hand, NASCAR says it wants drivers to be real and personable and not micromanaged. And on the other hand, if they send out a tweet that NASCAR doesn't like, they get upset about it. It's kind of like in the old days when we just used to walk up and interview drivers. NASCAR didn't send somebody around to double check what they're saying or to vet the interview or anything like that. They let drivers say what drivers wanted to say, and this is the new conversation on Twitter. So I'm not sure that NASCAR needs to be poking its nose in there. If somebody wants to be critical of NASCAR, good grief, can you imagine? If in the old days, if NASCAR fined drivers for being critical of them, Darrell Walter he'd still have to be working somewhere to pay his fines. He'd be flat broke instead of living on that mansion and the horse farm in Franklin next door to you. But no, Darrell would have been. He couldn't have made enough money each week to pay his fines, and that was what was so refreshing. This young NASCAR rebel, Darrell Waltrip, speaking his mind every week. Why not let Brad Keselowski Twitter his mind every week if that's what he wants to? And I think fans, we know the media loves it.
Sure.
I mean, we can't get enough of it. I think fans would like it too because it shows that these guys, they're not little cardboard cutouts. They're personable. They're personalities with feelings and emotions, and let them vent.
I'm pretty well convinced that the fine was not for what he was twittering or tweeting. Tweet, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I actually have an account on what to do with it. But it was for his comments after the race, his verbal comments, which were a little a little bit of a poke or negative. Let me back up. May have been a little bit negative towards NASCAR.
Well, like I say, Joe, I thought he went overboard, Keselowski, because here's a young guy who's probably just wrapped up his first championship, and I thought he went a little overboard in the post-press conference with, and particularly his language. You know, I'm no prude, but I'm a little concerned when you have a live press conference that's being beamed out everywhere, and you have to bleep out every other word like a Jerry Springer show. I hate to see NASCAR press conferences descend to that level, and I thought it didn't put Keselowski in a good light.
Yeah.
Other than that, though, as far as the substance of what he said, who cares if he thinks, you know, NASCAR blew it by not putting out a caution earlier enough, or if he's upset at the way some of his fellow drivers raced, let him say it. Who cares? That's his opinion. Let him express his opinion. Again, I'd like for him to express it in a little nicer language, you know, in a public press conference, but other than the substance of what he says, I don't have any problem with it.
Woody, you're just a prude.
I am.
No.
An old
prude, yes. All right, let's switch gears here a little bit. We're going to talk about next year. First, though, a big shout out to our good friends at USA Motor and Machine. Got to tell you, from the daily driver to anything you really want to run out there, even on the racetrack, the guys over at USA Motor and Machine on Cleveland Avenue can take care of you. You can give them a shout or look them up on the web there.
And you can't race without a sponsor, just remember that.
Boy, you can't do anything without a sponsor anymore. All right, let's talk a little bit about next year. Biggest changes, couple of rule changes NASCAR's come out with. One I kind of like, Larry. Didn't go as far as I'd like it to, but you remember a couple of years ago, 4 years ago, they came out with this, well, anybody in the top 35 in points is guaranteed a spot. Well, there's only 43 spots in the race. It's hard for new people, new blood to get in.
Yep.
They've thrown that out now. What they're saying now is the fastest 36 cars, whoever they may be, will make the race with the next 6 positions determined by the order of points, owner points, and then the last spot will go to a former champion, the old former champion's provisional. If there's none that needs it, then it will go to the next one in owner points. I'm a firm believer that you've got to have something in there for guys who have a bad day. I like that. Yeah. But to have 35 locked in, especially when so many were start and park cars, this, I think, kind of opens it up a little bit for some guys.
I agree completely. The only thing, I'm not sure, I might have gone one step further. First of all, start the fastest 35, then you got 6 positions reserved just to make sure some guy named, say, Gordon, Earnhardt, Stewart, or Johnson has a bad day, hits the wall during qualifying. They still got a chance to get in the race, and it doesn't deprive fans who have bought their tickets in advance of getting a chance to see some guy named Earnhardt, Gordon, Johnson, and Stewart race. You know, I think NASCAR is looking out for its fans. Of course, NASCAR is looking out for NASCAR too.
Sure.
But it is looking out for the fans, the viewers, the ticket buyers. So I'm content with that. I might do away with the past champions provisional. I've always been a little trouble with that, Joe, and I'm not sure that what you did last year should have a bearing on what you did this year. It's like last year's Super Bowl champion. In the NFL, should they get, say, a touchdown to start the game each game the next season? I'm a little troubled by that. Let the past champion fall in to that other 6 or 7 mulligans that you get during qualifying, and if he's not good enough to get in one of those, maybe the past champion should load up and go home and start working on next year.
Well, Larry, remember, it's not just the past champion from last year. This goes
Forever.
all the way back. You know, Cale Yarborough could try to make the Richard Petty. If he enters the race and makes a couple practice laps, he's in.
Yeah. And we saw our buddy Darrell Waltrip kind of cash in on this a lot too, when he's struggling through the sort of the throes of a great career. And it wasn't Darrell's fault; his car wouldn't go, but Darrell was relying on that almost every week to make the race. So, again, I'm not going to fire off a letter to Mike Hilton and Brian France down in NASCAR, but as long as they were tweaking, I wouldn't have minded them seeing them toss that out too. And just now, the greatest thing in the world, Joe, and the most American thing, you got 43 drivers who start the race the fastest 43 in qualifying start. But now that's not practical because, again, Jeff Gordon, Dale Jr., Jimmy Johnson, in this screwy sport like we're talking about, could have a flat tire, hit the wall, and knock themselves out of a race. So I think, given the nature of the NASCAR beast, you've got to have a little leeway to get these guys in for the benefit of the fans.
And every successful traveling series, be it NASCAR, the old All-Pro Series, the old ASA Series, had some kind of winner's circle program
to make sure the stars.
Yeah, and if you remember, Larry, back in the mid '80s, NASCAR had the winner, so you had to win to get the money.
Yeah.
You know, the champion got extra money. You had to win. And
it was literally the winner's circle program.
Yeah, it was literally a winner's circle program. Real quick, a couple of other things. Qualifying. They're not going to go by practice times anymore. The order of qualifying goes back to the blind draw. How good are you? What's your gambling? You know, how lucky are you to get the right spot? And more than just that, if it rains out, I thought this was kind of funny. If it rains out qualifying, they'll set it by the rule book as to who gets in. Your top 35 or whatever, but your starting spot is determined by practice speed. Yeah, which I think is going to be kind of interesting. A couple other changes they made.
And it makes qualifying more interesting. That's the bottom line.
That's the whole idea. A couple other changes they made in the Nationwide Series. They cut the field from 43 to 40, and they're staying with their guaranteed top 30 getting in. Probably a good move since they've struggled to have 40 at some places. They also announced the nationwide schedule this week. And Larry, there are only 6 races that are standalone nationwide events.
And we're not on it. Nashville Superspeedway is officially not going to be racing NASCAR anyway next year. Joe, I'm a little conflicted about cutting the nationwide to from 40 to 43. Now, granted, most of those three positions that were eliminated, they were starting park guys who just showed up and started the race to get the starting money, essentially the appearance money, and load up and go home. On the other hand, most of these guys, it's like I talked to some of them in the past, starting park guys, and I said, look, you think we enjoy going to a track and starting a race and knowing we don't have a chance and we're going to load up and go home? So what we're trying to do is buy some time. We're trying to survive in this economy and keep our race team afloat and hopefully come back in better times and with a car and equipment so we can get up there and run up front and compete for wins. But right now, it's a struggle for survival. So again, Joe, I guess it depends on how you look at it. From the team owner's perspective, some of the starting park guys, they might have been taking advantage of it to make a few quick bucks without having to race. Some of them, though, they were, like that guy said, we're in a survival mode now. We're hanging on.
And Larry, in all honesty, with the exception of some of the big races, the Daytonas, the Talladegas, the Charlottes, this kind of thing, the tag-along races, I call them, with a Cup event, they were struggling to get those fields, even at 40. So.
Yeah, they were. So again, it's one of those things. I'm not particularly been out of shape one way or the other, but I'm not sure that's going to solve any kind of NASCAR's long-range problems.
You're exactly right. Tell you what, we're going to come back, and when we do, we're going to finish out the day talking about local racing. Another great night of action at Highland Rim Speedway. We'll share that and some other ideas with you coming up right after this.
From the family grocery hauler to fire-breathing racing engines, the one name you need to know is USA Motor and Machine, located at 51 Cleveland Avenue in Nashville, Tennessee. Give them a call at 615-726-3725 or visit them online at www.usamotorandmachine.com.
Microcasting for your city, Talkapolis.
Welcome back, everybody, to the final segment. Pit Pass today. I'm Joe Williams along with Larry Woody. Got to say a special thanks to the folks at the Batter's Box over at 43 Hermitage Avenue for helping to make this entire thing possible. Thank you, guys. If you're looking for a good place to eat, that's the place to go. Oh, man, good steaks too. Larry, Highland Rim Speedway got the final race of the year completed this past weekend. Talk about some winners, names that we recognize like Tommy Clymer and Kevin Lemastus in Sportsman, Clymer in the late models, Matt Fuqua won in the Super Stocks. Also, Matt Spurlock won the big 50-lap Pro 4 feature. Other winners included Zena Jenkins, Josh Brown, Tink Jackson was a winner along with David Lassiter, John Vibert, David Moyes III, and Clint Ivey won in the open wheels. It's good to see them back. Larry, a good run here for the Rim to start. They've already announced they will open next year on April the 6th, and they're going to run through October 26th.
Yep. And Buddy Williams, one of the co-owners who was scheduled to be here today and was a little under the weather, took a rain check till next week. I think our buddy Harold Davis says might be some big announcements made on the show next week.
Might be a good thing that he does hang out, yeah.
And I'm glad to see Rim, as we've said so many times, Joe, I'm glad to see small tracks like Highland Rim, tough little quarter-mile track up in Ridgetop. I'm glad to see these little tracks not only hanging on, but it looks like they're starting to prosper again. So I think it's great for the sport.
I understand the crowd was very good.
Yep.
Big car count
Yep.
up at the Rim Saturday night. The real work right now, Larry, for these guys starts now
Yeah.
to get
The
ready for next
off-season.
year and carry this great momentum that they've got forward.
That's what they say, Joe. The work is done in the off season. When the season starts, that's the fun. So it's going to be interesting to watch the development of Highland Rim. They've done a great job so far, and I anticipate this carrying over, the momentum carrying over into next season.
It would be a good thing to have that go on. A great place to start. A great place to go spend a Saturday night.
Oh, it's great.
Just to have fun.
You can't go to a movie for what it costs
No.
to go to Highland Rim and watch a race, so it's fun.
It'll be good, and it'll be good to have Buddy Williams here next week.
And the big announcements.
And we'll find out what's going on there. All right, coming up this weekend, local racing is done. We've got that last final Cup race at Homestead. Well, I guess the trucks finish at Homestead along with the nationwide cars where, Elliott Sadler cannot catch a break. Elliott can't catch a break. We'll talk about that next week. And also, we'll wrap up the Cup season.
And we'll see if Jimmy Johnson really left Phoenix last Sunday with a big fork stuck in his back.
Because he was done.
He's done.
want to remind? No, I don't want to remind you. I'll take it back. I'm not going to say that because I'll jinx it. Woody did it already. I don't want to fall into his trap. That's what I'm saying. I don't want to fall into that trap. All right, for Larry Woody, I'm Joe Williams. Thank you so much for joining us on Pit Pass. We'll see you the next time.
Microcasting for your city, Talkapolis.